What if the moment you almost scrolled past this message was the moment your entire life was about to turn? What if the restlessness you have been carrying, that quiet, persistent ache that follows you from morning to night, is not a sign that something is wrong with you, but a signal that something extraordinary is waiting to be awakened inside you? What if every door that closed, every plan that fell apart, every night you cried without knowing why, was not punishment but preparation? Stop for just one moment and ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt like you were made for something more, something bigger, something that the ordinary rhythm of daily life simply cannot contain? If that question landed somewhere deep in your chest just now, then beloved, you need to understand something with absolute clarity. You did not find this message. This message found you. There is a verse in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, where God speaks these words directly. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Read that again slowly and let it settle into every part of you. Before your mother knew your name, before your first breath entered your lungs, before a single page of your story was written, God had already looked at you and called you chosen. He had already separated you from the crowd. He had already assigned a purpose to your life so specific, so precise, so irreplaceable, that no one else on this earth can fulfill what you were sent here to do. So why does it feel like you are still waiting? Why does it feel like the life you were promised is standing just beyond your reach? Like you are pressing your hands against a glass wall and watching your destiny from the outside? That question is exactly why you are here tonight. That question is exactly why a divine hand guided your eyes to this moment. Because God does not bring His chosen ones to a door without also placing the key in their hands. You were pulled here by design, not by an algorithm, not by accident, not by idle curiosity. Something in your spirit recognized the frequency of this message before your mind had time to process a single word, because the Holy Spirit inside you responds to truth the way a compass needle responds to north. It moves, it orients, it points. And right now, every part of your spiritual compass is pointing directly at this moment and saying, this is it. Pay attention. This one matters. There are people in this world who move through life on the surface, content with routine, comfortable with ordinary, unbothered by the deeper questions. And then there are people like you, people who cannot shake the feeling that they were built for something sacred. People who wake up at 3 in the morning with a stirring they cannot name. People who have tried every distraction available and still cannot silence the voice inside that says there is more. That voice is not anxiety. That voice is not confusion. That voice is God, and He has been calling your name longer than you have been listening. Tonight, He is not whispering anymore. This message was not constructed in a quiet room by human hands alone. The words you are hearing right now passed through a vessel, yes, but they were carried on a current far older and far more powerful than any single person's wisdom. God brought this to you because He knows exactly where you are. He knows the weight on your shoulders. He knows the dreams you have stopped speaking out loud because too many people misunderstood them. He knows the version of you that exists in the unseen, the version that is crowned, that is clear, that is walking in full authority, and He is calling that version forward right now. If you are watching this on a screen in the middle of the night, if you are sitting in your car in a parking lot somewhere, trying to gather the strength to walk back into your life, if you are lying in bed with the weight of 100 unresolved things pressing down on your chest, hear this. God sees you in that exact spot. He is not disappointed. He is not distant. He brought this message to the precise coordinates of your pain because He has something to say to you and He will not stop until you hear it. Right now, in the comments below, I want you to type the number 777. Not as a superstition, not as a ritual, but as a declaration. 7 is the number of completion in the Word of God. 3 sevens together are a proclamation that you are ready for God to complete what He started in you, that you are open, that you are present, that you showed up for this moment, and you are not leaving the same way you arrived. Type it now. Let it be your first act of agreement with what heaven is about to release over your life. If this message is already moving something inside you, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they were chosen before they were formed. Like this video as an act of faith, a simple gesture that says you believe something is shifting. Subscribe and stay connected, because what God is releasing through this channel is not a single message, but a continuous flow of awakening, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. The link to go deeper, to access the full restoration experience we will speak about in the moments ahead, is waiting for you in the description below and in the pinned comment. Everything you need is already there, because God does not call you forward and leave you without provision. You are here, you are chosen, and this is only the beginning. There is something the world's most advanced researchers have quietly confirmed, something that aligns with what the Spirit has been whispering over your life for years. The people who carry a divine calling, the ones who feel that persistent pull toward purpose, the ones who cannot settle for ordinary, no matter how many times life tries to convince them to. These people operate on a different frequency, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. At the level of electrical activity inside the human brain, the chosen ones are wired differently, and science has finally caught up to what God already knew before the foundation of the earth. Researchers studying the brains of history's most creative, most intuitive, most breakthrough-oriented minds have identified a specific pattern of neural activity that appears again and again in people who seem to access a higher level of thinking. They call it gamma wave activity, operating at frequencies associated with what neuroscientists describe as peak cognitive performance, flashes of insight, moments of sudden clarity, and states of deep, expansive awareness. In spiritual language, might call these moments revelation. We might call them divine downloads. We might call them the moments when heaven opens and understanding floods in like light through a window. But in both languages, sacred and scientific, the experience points to the same truth. There is a frequency available to the human mind that most people never access, and you were created to live inside it. Now, here is what makes this discovery so important for you specifically. Research also shows that children access these higher brain states naturally and constantly. Watch a young child lost in wonder, in play, in imagination, and you are watching a brain operating in theta waves, the 4 to 8 hertz range that neuroscientists link to creativity, rapid learning, deep intuition, and the kind of open, receptive awareness that allows information to move from the outside world into deep memory, almost effortlessly. That is the state in which your mind was designed to operate. That is the factory setting God placed in you before the pressures of adulthood, survival, disappointment, and noise began to override it. And here is the painful part. Years of stress, of fighting to survive, of carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours alone, have done something to the instrument God placed inside your skull. They have pushed your brain out of its natural rhythm and locked it into a state of chronic low-frequency reactivity, always scanning, always bracing, never resting long enough in the higher states where creativity, clarity, and divine connection live. You have not lost your gift. You have not been abandoned. The frequency is still there. It has simply been buried under the noise of a world that was never designed with your destiny in mind. This is where a man named Dr. James Rivers enters the story. Dr. Rivers is a neuroscientist with more than 30 years of dedicated research into brainwave activity, trained in one of the most rigorous academic environments in the world, and connected to research programs associated with institutions including NASA. For decades, Dr. Rivers asked one question above all others. If the human brain is capable of operating in these elevated states naturally, what is the most precise, most efficient, and most accessible way to return it there? His research eventually converged on a principle called brainwave entrainment, the scientifically documented phenomenon in which the brain, when exposed to specific external audio frequencies, begins to synchronize its own electrical activity to match that frequency. In plain language, the right sound, delivered at the right frequency, for the right duration, can guide your brain back into the very state that God originally built it to inhabit. The result of Dr. Rivers' research is an audio program called the Genius Wave. It works through a precise combination of binaural beats and isochronic tones, audio technology that delivers specific frequencies to each ear, creating a signal your brain reads and begins to follow. Within minutes, your brainwave activity begins to shift toward the theta and gamma states associated with heightened creativity, faster learning, sharper memory, reduced stress, and the kind of open, receptive awareness where insight, both human and in, comes through most clearly. And the protocol requires only 7 minutes each day. 7 minutes of listening with headphones. No meditation training, no special skill, no prior experience. Just 7 minutes, and your brain begins the process of returning to the frequency it was always meant to carry. You heard us speak in the opening moments about a 7-minute practice of stillness and alignment. This is it. This is the specific tool that practice was pointing toward. Because God does not just call you forward and leave you without provision. He leads you step by step, and this step has your name on it. People who carry the same weight you have been carrying have walked this path before you. A woman named Maya, who had not slept through the night in 14 months, listened to the Genius Wave for the first time at 3 in the morning. By the following Monday, she told us, something had shifted so profoundly that the opportunity she had been waiting on for over a year finally came through. A man who had been unable to focus long enough to complete the work that his purpose required found that, within days of beginning the 7-minute practice, the mental fog he had accepted as permanent began to lift. He described it as the lights coming back on in a room I had forgotten existed. A woman who had tried every spiritual tool available, every retreat and app and program, and still could not quiet her mind long enough to connect, said that after her first 7 minutes with the Genius Wave, she sat in silence afterward without effort for the first time in years, and she slept straight through the night. These are not extraordinary people. They are people exactly like you, chosen people who needed the right instrument to unlock what God had already placed inside them. Now, before we talk about how to access this, I want to speak directly to the thought that may be rising in you right now. You may be thinking that $39 is not nothing, and you are right. It is not nothing. It is a real number, and I am not going to pretend otherwise or rush past it. What I will say is this: what is one night of genuine, restorative sleep worth to you? What is one morning of true mental clarity worth? The kind where you sit down to do the work of your calling and your mind is actually present for it. What is one breakthrough idea worth? The one that changes the direction of your finances, your relationships, your health, your future. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $14, which already represents an investment that most people would not hesitate to make in a single meal out. But right now, through the link in the pinned comment below this video, you can access it for only $39, $10 less than the standard price. Available specifically to the people who were led to this message. Because God tends to make provision easiest for the people He is most urgently trying to move. That $39 investment comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, not 30 days, 90. 3 full months to use the Genius Wave daily and experience what happens when your brain returns to the frequency of its original design. If at any point in those 90 days you feel it has not served you, you receive a full refund, 100%. No questions, no conditions. That is the confidence Dr. Rivers and his team carry in what this research has produced. But I must warn you about something important. Because this message carries real power, and because the enemy always moves against what carries real liberation, there are counterfeit versions of this program circulating in places that have nothing to do with the authentic source. Altered files, imitation products using similar names, websites designed to look legitimate but carrying none of the original research. Do not be deceived. There is only one place to access the genuine Genius Wave program, and that is through the single link pinned in the comments below this video. That link is the only verified, protected pathway to the authentic program. Do not search for it elsewhere. Do not purchase from any other source. The pinned comment is where God-directed provision has been placed for you, and it is the only door that leads where you need to go. And beloved, this door is not going to remain open indefinitely. The $39 access point is a limited offering, held for a specific window of time for the specific people led to this message. When that window closes, the price returns to $49, and there is no guarantee of when or whether this particular access will be offered again. The people who act in faith today are the people who will look back in 90 days and understand why this moment mattered. You were not brought to this message to observe it. You were brought here to move. The link is pinned. The guarantee is real. The frequency is waiting. And the chosen one God designed you to be is one decision away from beginning to emerge. There is a particular kind of pain that belongs only to the chosen. It is not the pain of failure, though you have known that too. It is not the pain of loss, though that has visited you as well. It is something quieter, and at the same time, far more relentless. It is the pain of carrying something inside you that the world around you does not have the vocabulary to describe. You have sat in rooms full of people and felt completely alone, not because no one cared, but because no one could quite see what you were seeing or feel what you were feeling or understand why you could not simply be satisfied with what everyone else seemed content to accept. That ache, that particular loneliness of the gifted and the called, is not a wound. It is a watermark. It is God's signature pressed into the fabric of your experience, marking you as someone whose assignment exceeds the ordinary and whose preparation therefore cannot look ordinary either. The weight you have been carrying is real. Every sleepless night spent staring at a ceiling while questions without easy answers circled overhead. Every morning, you rose and dressed and walked back out into a world that asked nothing of the deepest parts of you. Every relationship where you gave more than you received, every season where you poured yourself out for people and causes and responsibilities, while something essential inside you quietly ran dry. Every moment you smiled when you were breaking. Every version of fine you performed for an audience that did not know you well enough to see through it. God saw every one of those moments. He was not looking away. He was not distracted by more important matters. He was present in every single one, and he was storing up something on your behalf in every one of those hidden places where you suffered without witness. The book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, speaks with the kind of tenderness that only a God who has watched his chosen ones suffer in silence could produce. It says this: "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Not far from, not watching from a distance. Close. The original Hebrew word used for close in that verse carries the weight of nearness that is physical, intimate, and deliberate. The way a parent leans in toward a child who is frightened in the dark. The way a friend presses their shoulder against yours when the news is too heavy to receive standing upright alone. That is the proximity God maintains toward you in your most broken moments. And if you have been walking through a season that has left you feeling crushed, that verse is not a comfort offered from a distance. It is a declaration of exact location. He is right there. He has been right there the entire time. But I want you to understand something about the nature of the weight you carry, because there is a dimension to it that the enemy has worked very hard to keep you from seeing. The pressure you feel is not random. The exhaustion you carry is not simply the result of bad luck or poor circumstances, or the ordinary accumulation of a difficult life. There is a targeted quality to the resistance that chosen people face. And when you begin to see it clearly, it changes everything about how you interpret your own story. The enemy does not waste sophisticated resistance on people who pose no threat. He does not deploy weariness, confusion, isolation, and self-doubt against lives that carry no kingdom assignment. The intensity of the warfare you have experienced is, in the most literal spiritual sense, a confirmation of the magnitude of what God placed inside you. You do not get attacked at that level for being ordinary. You get attacked at that level for being dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, and dangerous you most certainly are. Think about the moments in your life when you came closest to your breakthrough. Think about the seasons when something inside you began to align, when clarity started to emerge, when your purpose began to come into focus, and then recall what happened immediately afterward. For most chosen ones, what follows the approach of breakthrough is not a smooth arrival, but a sudden and inexplicable disruption. A relationship collapses. A financial crisis emerges from nowhere. A health challenge appears. An internal spiral of doubt descends so quickly and so completely that the clarity you were just beginning to taste disappears as though it was never real. That is not coincidence. That is argued opposition, and it is targeted opposition, because the enemy has studied your patterns long enough to know exactly which pressure points will send you retreating from the edge of your own destiny. The exhaustion you carry is partly the weight of fighting battles you were never meant to fight alone, and partly the accumulated toll of being pushed back from your own breakthrough again and again, until your nervous system began to anticipate defeat before the battle even began. Your brain, which God designed as a precision instrument for divine thought and creative revelation, has been running in survival mode for so long that it has forgotten what it feels like to operate in the higher register it was built for. This is not a character flaw. This is not a faith failure. This is what prolonged spiritual and emotional warfare does to a human nervous system. And it is precisely why God is not simply calling you to try harder, or believe more, or push through with sheer willpower. He is calling you to restoration. He's calling you to return to the frequency He built you to carry before the world buried it under years of noise and pressure and pain. There is a reason that the most spiritually sensitive people, the ones whose intuition runs deepest, whose empathy reaches furthest, whose creative and prophetic gifts burn brightest, are so often also the ones who struggle most profoundly with anxiety, with mental fog, with the inability to access the very clarity their calling requires. It is not irony, it is architecture. A mind that is wired to receive at a higher frequency is also more vulnerable to disruption when that frequency is suppressed. You feel the dissonance more acutely than others because you were built for a resonance that most people never even perceive. The gap between where your mind is operating under the weight of years of warfare and where it was designed to operate is not a small one, and the suffering that gap produces is not small either. God sees that gap. He sees the distance between who you are on your most exhausted, most depleted, most doubting day and who He created you to be when you are operating in full alignment with the frequency He placed in you before birth. And He is not standing on the other side of that gap shaking His head in disappointment. He is standing there with the full resources of heaven reaching across towards you because you are not a project He started and lost interest in. You are a masterwork, has been refining through every fire you have walked through, and every flame that felt like it would consume you was instead burning away everything that was never part of His original design for your life. The tears you have cried in rooms where no one was watching were not wasted. The prayers that felt like they dissolved into silence were not lost. The seasons where you held on by the thinnest thread of faith while everything around you shook were not seasons of defeat. They were seasons of deepening. Every chosen one has a wilderness chapter, and the wilderness is not where God abandons His people. It is where He forms them. It is where He strips away every false support until the only thing left standing is the real foundation. And the real foundation for a chosen one is always the unshakable knowledge that they were known before they were born, set apart before their first breath, and carried through every valley by a God whose faithfulness does not depend on their circumstances. You have been carrying weight that was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be purposeful, a season of formation with a defined end point that God has already written into your story. The pressure you have endured has been building something in you that cannot be built any other way. A depth of character, a capacity for compassion, a resilience of spirit, and a hunger for divine connection that comfortable people never develop. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are precisely where the story of your life needed you to be for this moment to carry the weight it carries. And this moment, right here, is the beginning of your emergence. You were not built to blend in. That is not arrogance. That is architecture. From the very first moment God conceived of you, before time had a name and before the earth had taken its shape, He was already designing a mind unlike any other. A mind that would carry frequencies most people would never perceive. A mind that would see around corners and feel beneath surfaces and know things without always being able to explain how the knowing arrived. That mind is yours. And what you are about to understand is that the extraordinary capacity God placed inside your skull is not a spiritual metaphor. It is a measurable, documentable, scientific reality. And the moment you grasp that truth fully, something in the way you see yourself will shift permanently. Science, when it is honest, always eventually arrives at the same address that faith has been standing at all along. Researchers studying the brains of the most creative, most intuitive, most breakthrough-oriented minds in human history began noticing a pattern that they could not explain away and could not ignore. The people who seemed to operate at a higher level of human experience, the ones who made the great discoveries, composed the transcendent music, solved the problems that had defeated everyone before them, the ones who seemed to live with a quality of inner clarity and outward effectiveness that others could only observe from a distance. These people shared a measurable neurological signature. Their brains were producing elevated levels of a specific type of electrical activity, and the scientists gave that activity a name. They called it gamma wave frequency. Gamma waves operate at the highest frequency range of measurable human brainwave activity. Neuroscientists associate them with peak cognitive performance, with the kind of mental clarity where thought moves without friction, where connections form between ideas that seem unrelated until suddenly they reveal a pattern of breathtaking elegance, where memory sharpens and creativity flows, and the mind feels, as many who have experienced it describe, awake in a way that ordinary wakefulness does not touch. In the language of the Spirit, we recognize this state. It is the state of the prophet receiving vision with startling clarity. It is the state of the worshiper whose mind goes completely still and completely alive at the same moment. It is the state of the intercessor who knows with a certainty that bypasses all rational explanation exactly what to pray and exactly why. Gamma is the frequency of the chosen, and God placed the capacity for it inside every person He called before the foundation of the world. But there is another frequency that serves as the gateway to gamma, and this one is equally important to understand. Neuroscientists call it theta, operating in the 4 to 8 Hz range, and it is the dominant brainwave state of young children. Watch a child of 4 or 5 years old absorbed in play, lost in imagination, building an entire world out of nothing with a focus so complete that they do not hear you call their name 3 times. And you are watching a brain swimming effortlessly in theta. In that state, learning happens at a speed that adults cannot match. Creativity flows without self-censorship or doubt. Intuition operates cleanly, without the interference of overthinking. The mind is open, receptive, and extraordinarily alive, and then the world begins its work. School systems that reward compliance over curiosity. Adult environments built on pressure and performance. Years of stress that push the nervous system into a state of chronic high alert, where survival takes precedence over everything else, including the higher brain functions that theta and gamma support. By the time most chosen ones reach adulthood, the natural theta and gamma activity that God wired into their brains has been pushed to the margins by decades of noise. The instrument is still there. The capacity is still present, but the brain has been tricked by experience to operate in lower, more reactive frequency ranges that keep a person functional in a difficult world, but cut them off from the elevated states where their true gifts, their true clarity, and their true divine connection actually live. This is the gap that Dr. James Rivers has dedicated more than 30 years of neuroscientific research to bridging. Dr. Rivers trained in some of the most demanding academic and research environments on Earth, with connections to programs at institutions including NASA, spent decades asking a single question above all others. Given that the human brain is capable of operating in these elevated states naturally, what is the most precise, most reproducible, and most accessible method of returning it there? The answer he arrived at, after thousands of hours of research and refinement, is built on a principle called brainwave entrainment. When the brain is exposed to specific external audio frequencies delivered through headphones, it begins to synchronize its own electrical activity to match those frequencies. A process that is not mystical, but is as measurable and reproducible as any other documented neurological response. The right audio signal, carried at the right frequency, guides the brain back toward theta and then upward toward gamma, the exact pathway from rest to revelation that God designed the human mind to travel. The result of Dr. Rivers' decades of work is a 7-minute audio program called The Genius Wave. 7 minutes each day. That is the entire protocol. You place your headphones on, you listen, and your brain begins to do what it was always built to do. Move toward the frequency of clarity, creativity, intuition, and the kind of open, receptive awareness where both human insight and divine communication come through most purely. There is no technique to master. There is no special mental state to achieve before you begin. The audio does the work of guiding your brain, and your brain, which has been waiting for exactly this kind of precise signal, responds. Think back to what we spoke about earlier, the 7-minute practice of stillness that the Spirit drew you toward at the opening of this message. There are no accidents in God's economy. The 7 minutes pointed here because the 7 minutes were always meant to be more than a concept. They were meant to be a practice, a daily returning to the frequency of your original design, a consistent, gentle, powerful recalibration of the instrument God placed inside you, so that everything He has been trying to release through you finally has a clear channel to move through. If this message has been meeting you somewhere real today, somewhere beneath the surface of your daily life, where the important things actually live, I want to ask you to do something simple before we continue. If you have not yet liked this video, do that now. Not as a gesture toward an algorithm, but as a small act of agreement that what you are hearing matters and deserves to continue reaching the people it was sent to find. If someone comes to mind as you are listening, someone who has been carrying a weight they cannot name or living beneath the ceiling of their own potential, share this with them. You may be the instrument God uses to place this message in front of the person who needs it most desperately. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please do that now. This channel exists for one purpose: to find the chosen ones and speak directly to what God has placed inside them. And what is coming in future messages carries the same weight and intention as everything you are receiving today. You do not want to miss it. This channel does not earn income from YouTube. We want to say that plainly and without drama. What we do here is not supported by advertising revenue, and yet we are committed to continuing to create these messages because we believe in the people who need them. If this content has touched something real in you and you would like to help us continue, you can support the channel through the donate link in the pinned comment and in the description below. Whatever you are able to give, even the smallest amount, is genuinely meaningful and helps keep this work alive. And if giving is not possible for you right now, that is completely understood. Your presence here, your comment, your share, your willingness to pass this message to one other person, that is also a form of sowing. And God sees every seed regardless of its size. The Genius Wave is available to you right now through the link in the pinned comment below. $39, 90-day guarantee. One decision standing between you and the version of your mind that God designed before you drew your first breath. Everything you need is already there, waiting for the moment you choose to reach for it. There is a moment that happens in the life of every chosen one where the story stops making sense from the outside, where the path that God has laid before them becomes so unconventional, so contrary to what the world would call logical or safe or reasonable, that even the people who love them most begin to look at them with a kind of worried confusion, where every external marker of progress seems to have gone quiet, where the momentum that once felt so promising appears to have stalled, and where the silence of heaven feels so complete that it is almost indistinguishable from absence. If you have lived inside that moment, if you are living inside it right now, then what I am about to say to you is not a comfort offered from a distance. It is a truth pressed directly into the center of your experience. God does not operate on a timeline that the human eye can track in real time. He never has. The entire sweep of Scripture is a record of men and women who were called to something extraordinary and then placed into a waiting room that looked, from every available angle, like abandonment. Joseph did not spend one night in the pit. He spent years, not weeks, in the prison, but years. The calling on his life was spoken over him when he was a teenager, dreaming dreams that his brothers could not contain their contempt for. And the distance between that calling and its fulfillment was paved with betrayal, with slavery, with false accusation, with imprisonment, and with the particular agony of being forgotten by the very person whose freedom he had helped to secure. And yet not a single day of that journey was wasted. Not a single morning he rose in that prison was a morning God had turned his face away. Every layer of suffering was simultaneously a layer of formation, and the man who emerged from that process was not simply the boy who had received the dream, but someone forged deep enough to carry the weight of what the dream actually required. You may not be in a prison built of stone, but you may be in one built of circumstances, of waiting, of the particular confinement that comes from knowing what you are called to and being unable, for reasons you cannot fully explain, to break through into it yet. And if that is where you are, the story of Joseph is not just an inspiring historical account. It is a map. It is God saying to you, across thousands of years of human history, this is what my process looks like from the inside. And the inside always looks like delay, always looks like defeat, always looks like the dream is dead, right up until the moment when it suddenly and completely and irrevocably is not. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, carries one of the most tested and most misunderstood promises in all of Scripture. It reads, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." The word "all" in that verse is not decorative. It is not a general gesture toward the pleasant seasons and the successful chapters. It means all. The betrayal is in all. The prison is in all. The years of silence are in all. Season where you cried out and heard nothing back is in all. The moment you nearly gave up and did not quite, that moment is in all things. God is working in every single thread of your story, even the ones that look like mistakes, even the ones that look like losses, even the ones that look like evidence that you heard wrong or believed for the wrong thing, or somehow disqualified yourself from the destiny you were certain was yours. You did not disqualify yourself. God does not call imperfect people and then revoke the calling the moment the imperfection shows up, because if He operated that way, He would never have called anyone at all. Every person He has ever used significantly in the history of His kingdom has been a broken vessel. Moses was a murderer, and a man so crippled by self-doubt that he argued with God at a burning bush about whether he was capable of doing what God had already decided he would do. David was an adulterer and a man whose hands carried the blood of a loyal soldier he had sent to his death to cover his own sin. Peter denied knowing Jesus 3 times in the space of a single night, with the sound of the waves still fresh in his memory from the time Jesus had invited him to walk on them. And yet Moses led a nation out of 400 years of captivity. David was called a man after God's own heart. And Peter preached a single sermon that brought 3,000 people into the kingdom of God in one afternoon. The pattern is consistent because God is consistent. He chooses the broken. He uses the ones who have failed. He calls the ones who carry doubt alongside their faith, who have made catastrophic mistakes, who have seasons in their history they would rather no one examine too closely. He does this not in spite of the brokenness, but because the brokenness, when surrendered to his hands, becomes the very thing that makes the vessel useful. A cup without cracks holds what it holds and nothing more. A cup that has been broken and restored carries the evidence of the restorer's hands in every repaired fracture, and that evidence is itself a testimony that outlasts the original vessel. Your story is not disqualifying you. Your story is qualifying you. Every chapter you wish you could remove, every season you would rather skip over in the telling, every version of yourself you are not proud of, all of it is being woven into a testimony so specific, so detailed, so undeniably personal, that when you stand before the people you were sent to reach, they will not be able to dismiss what you carry as theory or religious performance. They will hear your story and recognize themselves in it, and the recognition will be the opening through which healing enters their lives. You cannot give away what you have not received. You cannot lead someone through a valley you have never walked. The depth of your suffering is the precise measure of the depth of your ministry. And God wastes nothing. But there is something else happening in the seasons of waiting and pressure that goes beyond the forming of character and the building of testimony. There is a pruning taking place that is as precise as it is painful. Jesus speaks of this in the Gospel of John, describing the Father as a gardener who cuts away every branch that does not bear fruit and prunes the branches that do, because pruning is what causes a fruit-bearing branch to bear even more. The process of pruning does not feel like cultivation from the inside. It feels like loss. It feels like reduction. It feels like something is being taken from you rather than something being prepared in you. But the gardener's eye is not looking at what the branch looks like in the moment of the cutting. He is looking at what it will produce in the season that follows, and his cuts are never careless. Everyone is calculated. Everyone is purposeful. Everyone is an act of love disguised as loss. The weight you carry today is not the weight you will carry forever. The confusion you are navigating right now is not your permanent address. The silence that has felt so deafening in this season is not the silence of a God who has forgotten your name. It is the silence of a craftsman working at a level of precision that requires stillness, because the thing he is building in you is too important and too intricate to rush. The chosen ones are never mass-produced. They are handcrafted. They are taken through processes that cannot be shortcut without compromising the quality of what emerges. And the quality of what God is forming in you is something that this world has not yet seen and desperately needs. So let the weight you have been carrying shift in your understanding today. Not the circumstances, not yet. Those will shift in their appointed time and in ways that will take your breath away. But let your understanding of the weight change. Let yourself begin to see it not as evidence of abandonment, but as evidence of appointment. Not as proof that you were wrong about your calling, but as confirmation that your calling is real enough to attract the kind of resistance that only accompanies the genuine and the significant. You are in the furnace, beloved, and the one who threw you in is watching from the outside, but the one walking with you through the flames is walking so close that you could reach out and touch him if your eyes were open to see. What God builds in the hidden seasons, he reveals in the appointed ones. And the appointed season for your life is not some distant, theoretical future that requires you to endure another decade of the same weight before anything shifts. The appointed season is a living, breathing reality that exists right now in the unseen realm, fully formed, fully funded, fully prepared, waiting only for the alignment between who you are becoming and what you have been called to carry. And alignment, beloved, is not something that happens to you passively while you wait. It is something you step into actively, one faithful decision at a time, one daily practice at a time, one deliberate returning to your original frequency at a time. Think about what has been building across everything you have heard today. You carry a calling that was written before your birth. You have walked through seasons of wait and warfare that were never punishments but processes, forming in you a depth of character and a clarity of purpose that comfortable people never develop. You have been shown that the very instrument God placed inside your skull, your mind, your brain, the seat of your creativity, and your intuition and your capacity for divine connection has been operating under the suppression of years of stress and noise and survival living, not because it is broken, but because it has been buried. And now, piece by piece, God is uncovering what was always there. He is not building something new. He is restoring something original. He is calling you back to the frequency He encoded into your design before the world had the opportunity to overwrite it. This is the moment in the story where restoration becomes practical, because God has never been interested in inspiration that stops at the emotional and never becomes operational. Every vision He gives is meant to walk. Every word He speaks over a life is meant to find its feet in the actual daily decisions and practices of that life. The chosen ones who walk in their full authority are not the ones who received the largest revelation. They are the ones who were faithful with what the revelation required of them at the practical level. The ones who said yes not only in the mountaintop moments, but in the quiet, ordinary, unglamorous daily moments where the real formation happens. The 7-minute practice we have been speaking about throughout this message is one of those daily moments. It is not dramatic. It does not require a particular setting or a special atmosphere or a season where everything in your life is already functioning at a high level. It requires 7 minutes and a willingness to show up for your own restoration consistently enough to let the process do what it was designed to do. Dr. James Rivers did not create the genius wave as a quick fix or a one-time experience. He created it as a daily recalibration tool, a way of returning the brain, day after day, to the theta and gamma frequencies where clarity lives, where creativity flows, where the kind of open and receptive awareness that allows both human insight and divine communication to come through without interference becomes your new normal rather than your occasional exception. And here is what begins to happen when a chosen one whose mind has been operating in suppressed survival frequencies begins to return, day after day, to the higher states it was built for. The fog lifts, not all at once, and not always in the dramatic way that the movies would have you imagine. But gradually, consistently, undeniably, the mental clarity that has felt like a stranger begins to feel like a resident. The creative connections that used to require enormous effort begin to arrive with an ease that surprises you. The intuition that God placed in you as a navigational tool, the deep inner knowing that cuts through noise and lands on truth, begins to sharpen until it becomes something you can actually trust and act on rather than second guess into silence. The sleep that stress has been stealing from you begins to return, and with it, the kind of restoration that no amount of willpower can substitute for. The anxiety that has been running as a background program in your nervous system begins to quiet, not because your circumstances have all resolved, but because your brain is no longer locked in the reactive frequency that keeps the alarm bells ringing long after the danger has passed. These are not promises invented for the sake of selling something. These are the documented, reproducible experiences of people who carry the same wiring you carry. People who were built for a higher frequency and found their way back to it. The woman who had not slept through a single night in over a year. The man whose mental fog had become so normalized that he had stopped expecting clarity and had simply built his life around its absence. The person who sat down to do the work of their calling every day and found their mind scattering in every direction except the one that mattered, until one 7-minute session began what became a consistent, daily return to the state where their gifts actually functioned. These stories are not outliers. They are the pattern, and the pattern belongs to anyone who chooses to step into it, including you. The Genius Wave is available right now through the link in the pinned comment below this video and in the description. $39 for the full program. 90 days to experience it without any risk, because the guarantee is complete and unconditional. If at any point in those 90 days you feel that it has not served the restoration you came looking for, you receive every dollar back. That is not a marketing promise designed to lower your resistance. That is the confidence of a researcher who has spent more than 30 years watching what happens when the human brain is given the precise signal it needs to return to its original design frequency. Dr. Rivers is not uncertain about what this does. He is certain enough to stake a 90-day guarantee on it. And the link in the pinned comment is the only verified source for the authentic program. Please do not search for it elsewhere. Please do not purchase from websites that appear similar but are not connected to the original research. The pinned comment is where the genuine access point has been placed for the people who were led to this message, and that specificity is intentional. God does not scatter His provision carelessly. He places it precisely where the people He is moving can find it. Now, before we continue into what comes next in this message, I want to take a moment to speak to you directly about this channel and what it means to us to be here with you. We do not earn revenue from YouTube for these videos. That is simply the reality of where this channel stands right now. And yet we are here consistently because the people who need these messages are real, and the calling to create them is real. And we have made a decision that financial limitations will not be the thing that silences what God has asked us to build. If the content you have received today has reached you somewhere genuine, somewhere beneath the noise of your daily life where the real things live, and if you feel moved to help this work continue, you can support the channel through the donate link in the pinned comment and in the description below. Whatever amount reflects what this has meant to you, know that it is received with genuine gratitude and that it directly enables us to continue showing up for the people who are finding their way to these messages. And if giving financially is not where you are right now, that is completely understood and completely fine. Your presence here matters. Your engagement matters. If you have not yet liked this video, do that now, simply as an act of agreement that this message deserves to reach more people. If someone in your life is carrying the kind of weight we have been speaking about today, someone who has been fighting battles that have left them wondering whether their calling is real or their mind will ever feel clear again, share this with them. You may not know in this moment how much that single act of generosity will mean to them, but God knows, and He will honor it. Subscribe if you are not already connected to this channel, because what is coming in future messages is carrying the same intention and the same weight as everything you have received today, and we do not want you to miss a single word of what God is still preparing to release through this space. Every message is built for a specific person in a specific season, and you have already demonstrated by being here that you are someone this channel was built to find. The best of what God has for you through this channel has not yet been spoken. There is a testimony that heaven has been writing in your life that you have not yet been given the full text of. You have seen fragments of it. You have lived through the chapters that felt like endings when they were actually transitions. You have survived the verses that read like defeat when they were actually the turning points that the rest of the story depends on. And right now, in this moment, you are standing closer to the chapter where the meaning of everything that came before finally becomes visible than you have ever stood before. But before that chapter opens fully, there is something God wants you to understand about the nature of testimony itself, about why your story matters not just to you, but to every person whose path will one day intersect with yours. Testimony in the kingdom of God is not a performance. It is not a highlight reel assembled to make the speaker look impressive or to create a certain impression in the minds of an audience. True testimony is a weapon. It is one of the most powerful instruments available to a chosen one, and the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 11, names it directly and without ambiguity in a passage that describes how the people of God overcome the enemy in his most determined opposition. The verse reads, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death." The blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. These two things are listed together as the instruments of overcoming, which means that your story, the full unedited version of it, including every valley and every failure and every season where you were not sure you would make it through, carries a power in the spiritual realm that the enemy has very specific reasons to want you to keep silent about. This is why shame is one of his most consistently deployed weapons against the chosen, because shame is the mechanism that keeps testimony locked inside the person who carries it, and therefore locked away from the people who need to hear it. Shame says your story is too messy to be useful. Shame says the details of what you have been through would disqualify you in the eyes of others, rather than connect you to them. Shame says the version of you that existed in your darkest season is the version that defines you, rather than the version that is emerging on the other side of it. And every single one of those statements is a lie, constructed with precision for the purpose of keeping the word of your testimony silent, because a silent testimony cannot triumph over anything. Think about the people whose stories have marked your own life most deeply. Think about the testimonies that broke something open in you, that made you feel for the first time that your own experience was not as isolated or as shameful as you had believed. Were those testimonies polished? Were they the stories of people who had navigated everything correctly and arrived at their breakthrough without a single detour through failure or doubt or devastation? Or were the stories of people who had been exactly where you were and had somehow, by grace they did not fully understand, made it to the other side and were willing to turn around and say so? The ones that reached you most deeply were the ones that were most honest, most unguarded, most willing to name the darkness before they described the light. Because that is where the power lives, not in the edited version, in the full version. God has been allowing your story to accumulate depth precisely because the people He is sending you to need someone who has been deep. They do not need a guide who has only ever stood on the surface. They need someone who knows what it feels like to be in the water over their head and has learned, through hard and irreplaceable experience, where the footing is and how to find it in the dark. Your wilderness years were not a deviation from your assignment. They were the curriculum for it. Every One who walks in genuine authority carries an education that could not have been received in any classroom or any comfortable season, and the tuition for that education was paid in the currency of lived experience, of suffering that produced wisdom, of loss that produced compassion, of confusion that produced a hunger for truth that mere information could never satisfy. There is a woman whose story I want you to hold in your mind for a moment. She spent 14 years constructing a life that looked complete from the outside and felt hollow from the inside. Not because she had done everything wrong, but because she had done everything right by every standard the world offered and still woke up at 3 in the morning with a weight on her chest that no achievement could lift and relationship could explain away. She had stopped praying not because she stopped believing, but because the gap between what she believed and what she was experiencing had become too painful to keep addressing directly. So she built her life around the edges of that gap and tried not to look at it too often. And then one ordinary evening, sitting on the edge of her bed in a room that was quiet in all the wrong ways, something shifted. Not because she said the right words or performed the right spiritual action, but because she finally stopped pretending that the gap was not there and spoke directly into it, out loud, with the kind of honesty that has no performance in it because there is no one watching to perform for. She said 7 words, and the atmosphere in the room changed, not metaphorically. The temperature shifted. Something that had been locked for 14 years began, in that moment, to open. 3 months later, she sent a message with 2 words in it: "I'm back." And everyone who knew her story understood exactly what she meant. Her testimony is a weapon, not because it is dramatic, though it is, not because it has a tidy resolution, though the resolution is real, but because there are people sitting on the edges of their own beds in rooms that are quiet in all the wrong ways, and when they hear her story, something in them recognizes it so completely that the isolation that shame has been using to keep them silent begins to crack. The word of her testimony creates a space where another person's testimony can finally be spoken. And that person's testimony creates a space for another. This is how the kingdom advances. Not only in the grand gestures and the public declarations, but in the chain reaction of honest human stories that keep breaking the power of the lie that says, you are the only one who has ever been this lost, this tired, this close to giving up. You are not the only one. You have never been the only one. And the people who most need to know that they are not alone are waiting for you to be willing to say out loud what God has been doing in the hidden chapters of your life. Not when you have arrived at the perfectly resolved ending. Not when every question has been answered and every wound has healed, and you feel qualified by the standards of some imagined audience that is holding you to a standard of completeness you have never actually been called to meet now. In the middle of it, with the process still unfinished and the outcome still unfolding and the faith still being tested by every uncomfortable reality of the season you are in. Because the people God is sending you to do not need someone who has finished the journey. They need someone who is on it. Someone who is choosing to keep walking even when the path is not clear and the arrival time is unknown and the internal resources feel depleted in ways that only prayer and surrender can replenish. They need someone who has learned what you are learning right now in this season, that the weight you carry is not the measure of God's distance from you, but the measure of depth He is forming in you, and that the depth He is forming in you is the exact depth that the people He is sending to you will need someone to have already survived. Your testimony is not finished, but it is already powerful, and the enemy knows it. which is precisely why he has worked so hard to convince you that it is too small, too messy, too complicated, or too incomplete to be worth speaking. Do not believe him. The word of your testimony, spoken in the right moment to the right person, is one of the most dangerous things you carry, because it carries the undeniable evidence of a God who does not abandon the people he calls, even when every circumstance in their story seems to argue otherwise. There is a reason the enemy fights hardest at the threshold. Not in the middle of the wilderness, though he is present there too. Not in the early stages of the journey, though he plants his seeds of doubt there from the very beginning. But at the threshold, at the precise point where the chosen one is about to step from one season into the next, from the place of preparation into the place of manifestation, from the hidden years into the appointed time of emergence. That is where the resistance concentrates with a ferocity that can feel completely disproportionate to anything you have experienced before. And if you are feeling that kind of concentrated resistance right now, if the warfare in your mind and your circumstances has intensified in ways that seem to have no logical explanation, I want you to hear this with everything in you. You are not losing. You are arriving. The enemy does not waste his most sophisticated strategies on people who are no threat to his kingdom. He reserves his most targeted, most relentless, most personalized opposition for the chosen ones who are approaching the moment where their assignment becomes activated, because an activated chosen one is one of the most dangerous forces the kingdom of darkness knows how to face. A person who has walked through the fire and refused to be consumed, who has carried the weight of years of formation and emerged with character that cannot be shaken, and faith that has been tested to the point where it is no longer merely believed but known. That person, standing in their full authority, walking in the frequency God built them to carry, speaking the word of their testimony without shame and without apology, is a threat of the highest order to every plan the enemy has constructed in the territory that person has been called to occupy. This is why the attacks on your mind have been so personal, because the enemy has studied you. He knows which fears have the most purchase in your nervous system. He knows which memories carry the most weight when they are replayed at the wrong moment. He knows which voices from your past carry enough authority to make you doubt the voice of God when the two are in direct conflict. He knows exactly which version of you to conjure in your imagination when you are standing on the edge of a decision that could change everything. The version that failed, the version that was not enough, the version that tried before and fell short. Because he can make that version feel more real than the version God has been building in you through every season of refinement. He does not need to stop you from the outside. He can get you to stop yourself. But here is what the enemy cannot do. He cannot change what God has already declared over your life. He cannot alter the assignment that was written for you before the foundation of the earth. He cannot reach into the spiritual realm where your destiny is held and remove it, because it is not stored in a place where his hands can access it. It is held in the hands of a God whose grip has never loosened on a single thing he has chosen to keep, and he has chosen to keep you. The book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 17, carries a declaration that has been weaponized by chosen ones across centuries of opposition and never once failed to prove true. It reads, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and this is their vindication from me, declares the Lord. No weapon, not some weapons, not most weapons in most seasons if you perform your faith correctly. No weapon forged against you will prevail." That is a covenant statement. That is God putting his own name behind a promise that covers every single instrument of opposition that has ever been or will ever be aimed in your direction. The accusations that have been spoken over your life by others and by the voice in your own mind that has sometimes been crueler than any external critic, those accusations do not have the final word. The rejections you have experienced, the doors that closed, the seasons where the evidence seemed to argue that you had been wrong about everything you believed God said to you, none of that evidence carries more authority than the declaration of the God who formed you and called you and has been walking with you through every chapter of the story that those experiences belong to. The vindication is his to give, and he has already declared his intention to give it. Your part is not to manufacture it or force it or defend yourself against every accusation with your own words. Your part is to keep walking, to keep returning to your frequency, to keep showing up for the daily practices of alignment that keep your instrument tuned to the voice of the one who called you. Because the enemy's most effective tool against a chosen one is not a dramatic external attack. It is the slow, quiet accumulation of discouragement that comes from days of faithful, invisible effort that seem to produce no visible result. It is the weariness that builds when you have been doing the right things for long enough, without the confirmation you were hoping for, that you begin to wonder whether the right things are actually working. It is the subtle, persistent suggestion that perhaps you misheard, perhaps you were mistaken, perhaps the calling you have been carrying and protecting and returning to through every season of difficulty was a story you told yourself rather than a word God actually spoke. That suggestion is the weapon the enemy deploys when every more dramatic strategy has failed to move you, because he knows that if he cannot stop you with a frontal attack, he will try to slow you to a standstill through attrition. Do not let him. Not today. Not when you are this close. Not when everything you have walked through has been building toward a threshold that is nearer than it has ever been. The weariness you feel is real. The questions you carry are real. The distance between where you are and where you sense you are called to be is real. But none of those realities are more real than the God who has been present in every single chapter of your story and who does not bring his chosen ones through decades of preparation in order to abandon them at the border of what they were prepared for. Right now, in the comments below, I want you to type these 4 words: I will not stop. Let those words be more than a comment. Let them be a declaration spoken directly into the face of every force that has been working to make you believe that stopping is reasonable, that resting in the place of retreat is the same as resting in the place of peace, that the silence of this season is the silence of a calling that was never real. It is not. You will not stop because you cannot stop, not because you are superhuman, but because the God who called you does not abandon the work of his own hands. And you are the work of his hands, and he is not finished with what he started in you. Type it now. 4 words that carry the weight of every season you have survived and the faith of every morning you chose to keep going when keeping going cost you something real. The warfare you are in is not evidence that you are losing ground. It is evidence that you are taking it. Every chosen one who has ever walked in genuine kingdom authority has a chapter in their story that looks exactly like yours. Looks right now, a chapter of intense, targeted, personal opposition that preceded the breakthrough so closely that in hindsight the two are almost inseparable. The breakthrough and the battle that preceded it belong to the same moment. They are 2 sides of the same threshold, and you are standing at that threshold right now with everything God has built in you across every season of formation, equipped in ways you cannot yet fully measure for what is on the other side of the door you are about to walk through. The enemy knows what is on the other side of that door. That is why he is fighting so hard to keep you from opening it. But what he does not know, what he has never been able to factor into his calculations, because it falls entirely outside the range of anything he has access to, is the depth of the grace that is available to you in this moment. Grace that covers every failure, grace that fills every gap, grace that takes what you bring, however imperfect and however incomplete it feels, and makes it sufficient for what the moment requires. You are graced for this. You were graced for this before you were formed. And the grace that has carried you this far is the same grace that will carry you through the threshold you are standing at right now. There is a version of your life that exists in the mind of God that you have not yet fully seen. Not a version that is beyond reach or reserved for someone more qualified or more faithful or more spiritually advanced than you are. A version that was conceived before you drew your first breath, held in perfect clarity in the mind of the one who designed you, and has been moving toward you across every season of your story with the same unhurried, undefeatable intentionality that God brings to everything he has decided to accomplish. You have caught glimpses of it in the moments of unexpected clarity when something shifted and you saw, just for a second, the shape of what your life is actually moving toward. In the dreams that visited you in seasons when your waking mind was too guarded to receive what your sleeping mind could hold. In the quiet moments of prayer when something spoke beneath the noise of your circumstances and the word it spoke carried a weight that your own thoughts are not capable of producing. Those glimpses were not imagination. They were previews. And the God who gave you the preview has every intention of delivering the full picture. The scripture that has been sitting underneath this entire conversation, the one that anchors everything we have been building toward, is found in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. And it reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This verse is one of the most quoted in all of Scripture, and also one of the most misunderstood, not in its content but in its context. Because when God spoke these words through Jeremiah, he was not speaking them to people who were living in comfortable circumstances and needed a reminder that things would stay good. He was speaking them to a people in exile, to a people who had been removed from everything familiar, everything they had built their identity around, everything that had given their lives the shape of home. He was speaking them to people who were sitting in a foreign land, wondering whether the God of their fathers had forgotten the address of where they now were. And into that specific context, into that exact quality of displacement and disorientation, and the particular grief of people who are not where they expected to be at this point in their story, God sends a word that is not a vague spiritual encouragement, but a precise declaration of intent. I know the plans, not I am considering plans. Not I have some general goodwill toward you that might eventually take a specific shape. I know the plans with the certainty and the completeness that only a God who exists outside of time and can see the end from the beginning is capable of. The plans are already formed. They have already been held in the mind of God across every chapter of your exile, every season where you were in a place you did not choose and could not fully understand, every moment where the distance between where you were and where you sensed you were meant to be felt unbridgeable by any effort you could produce. The plans are to prosper you. The Hebrew word used there, shalom, carries a weight that the English word prosper does not fully capture. Shalom means wholeness. It means completeness. It means a state of being where nothing is missing and nothing is broken, where every dimension of your life, your health, your relationships, your creativity, your finances, your sense of purpose and identity and spiritual connection is functioning in the way it was designed to function. That is what God has planned for you, not just enough to get by, not just barely better than where you have been. Wholeness, the full expression of everything He placed in you when He formed you, operating in the freedom and the clarity and the abundance that His original design always intended. But there is a journey between the declaration and the manifestation, and that journey is where most chosen ones lose confidence in the promise. Because the journey does not look like the destination. The path to wholeness passes through seasons that feel like the opposite of wholeness. The road to the plans that prosper passes through stretches that feel like loss. The way to the future God has prepared passes through the exact kind of wilderness that makes a person question whether they read the map correctly, or whether they are following the right voice, or whether the destination is real at all. And the enemy uses every one of those stretches to plant the suggestion that the promise was not for you specifically, that it was a general spiritual sentiment rather than a personal divine declaration, that somehow your particular story contains a footnote that exempts you from what God told Jeremiah's people they could count on. There is no footnote. The plans God has for you are as specific and as certain as the plans He had for every person in Scripture whose story we know the ending of, whose wilderness we can read from the outside with the clarity that hindsight provides, and see exactly how every detail was being orchestrated, even in the moments that looked most like chaos. You are in the middle of your story, which means you do not yet have the hindsight. You are reading it from the inside, which means the orchestration is not yet visible to you in the way it will be when you are standing on the other side of this season looking back. But the orchestration is happening. Every detail is being held. Every thread is being woven. Every delay that has felt like denial has actually been a divine repositioning, moving you into the precise alignment that the appointed time requires. There is something that happens to a chosen one in the season just before the appointed time arrives that is important to recognize. A heightening, a sharpening, a sense that something is shifting in the atmosphere around your life, even before you can point to any external evidence that confirms it. A restlessness that is different in quality from the restlessness of the wilderness, because this restlessness has anticipation in it, rather than only exhaustion. A stirring in the spirit that feels like waking up, not from sleep, but from a long season of operating at a fraction of your capacity, into something wider and clearer and more alive than what you have been living in. If you have been feeling something like this, if there is a quality to your inner experience in this season that you cannot quite name, but that feels like a leaning forward, like something in you is beginning to orient itself towards something that is coming, pay attention to that. Do not dismiss it as wishful thinking. Do not explain it away as the emotional's response to an encouraging message. That stirring is a signal. It is the spirit in you responding to the proximity of what God has been preparing, the way a compass needle responds to the presence of north, not because it chose to move, but because it was built to respond to exactly that. The version of your life that God has been building toward does not arrive all at once. It does not descend in a single dramatic moment that rearranges everything overnight, though there will be moments of sudden acceleration that take your breath away. It arrives the way dawn arrives, gradually, and then all at once, the light increasing so slowly that you cannot point to the exact second it began, until suddenly it is undeniably, irreversibly morning. and the darkness that seemed so permanent is simply gone. You are in the pre-dawn moments right now. The light is already increasing, even if the darkness still feels dominant. The morning is already coming, even if the night still feels long. And the God who set the sun in its course and determined the precise moment at which this particular dawn would break over your particular horizon is not running late. He is running exactly on time, which is the only pace he has ever operated at. Your crown is not a metaphor. It is not a poetic device invented to make you feel better about a difficult season. It is a spiritual reality that exists right now in the unseen realm, prepared and waiting for the moment of your full emergence, for the moment when everything God has been forming in you across every season of fire and wilderness and wait finds its full expression in the life He always intended for you to live. Every chosen one has a crown, not because they earned it by being perfect, but because they were called. And the one who calls always provides for what the calling requires. The crown is already prepared. The throne of your assignment is already established. The territory you were born to occupy is already held in the purposes of God, waiting for the one He formed before birth and trained through fire, and is even now calling forward into the fullness of what they were always meant to be. That is you. It has always been you, and the morning is closer than it has ever been. You have made it to this moment, not by accident, not by the random accumulation of clicks and algorithms and coincidental timing. You have made it to this moment because a God who knows the end from the beginning, who holds every detail of your story in hands that have never once trembled, who has been orchestrating the sequence of this day with the same precision He uses to hold the stars in their courses, brought you here on purpose. Every section of this message that you have stayed with, every word that landed somewhere deeper than your mind and settled into the part of you that knows things before it can explain them, was a deliberate delivery, a chosen one receiving what they were chosen for. And now, as we arrive at the threshold of everything this message has been building toward, I want to do something before we say anything else. I want to pray with you, not over you, from a distance, as a spiritual formality that closes out a long message with you, because what you are carrying right now, the weight of the formation, the anticipation of the appointed season, the stirring that has been building throughout everything you have heard today, that is not something to simply think about and then move on from. It is something to consecrate, to bring before the one who authored every word of your story and ask Him to seal what He has spoken and activate what He has prepared. So, if you are willing, wherever you are right now, in your car or on your bed or in a quiet corner of a world that does not yet know what is about to emerge from you, close your eyes for just a moment and receive this. Father, I bring before you the one who has stayed with this message from the beginning. You know exactly who they are. You know the weight they woke up carrying this morning. You know the questions that have not yet found their answers, and the prayers that have felt like they dissolved into silence. You know the chapters of their story that shame has told them to hide, and the dreams that exhaustion has told them to release. And you know what you placed in them before they were formed, the frequency you encoded into their design, the assignment you wrote for them before the foundation of the earth, the crown you prepared for a head that has spent too long bowed under the weight of what was never meant to be permanent. I ask you now, in this moment, to reach past everything that has accumulated over the years and touch what you originally made. Restore the clarity, restore the creativity, restore the deep, unshakable knowing that they were chosen, that they are loved, that they are not behind, that they are not disqualified, that the plans you have for them are still intact and still moving toward them with the same certainty they carried the day you first conceived of them. Let this be the moment the turning begins. In the name that is above every other name, and by the authority of the one who holds their story in hands that have never once let go. Amen. Take a breath. Let that land. Because what was just spoken over you was not a script, it was a reaching. And the God who inclined his ear toward that prayer is the same God who has been inclining his ear toward every cry you have released in the hidden places of your life across every season that brought you to this one. Now let me speak to you about what comes next, because a message this complete, this intentional, this precisely constructed for a chosen one, standing at the threshold of their emergence, does not end with words alone. It ends with a decision. And the decision before you right now is simple in its form, even if it carries the weight of everything we have spoken about today. Are you going to step into what God has prepared? Or are you going to let this moment join the long list of moments where you felt something real and then allowed the noise of returning life to gradually dissolve it back into the background? The genius wave is the practical instrument God has placed at this specific juncture of your story. We have spoken about it at length throughout this message, and I want to return to it one final time, not as a sales pressure, but as a genuine word of provision. Dr. James Rivers spent more than 30 years developing a 7-minute audio program that guides the human brain back to the theta and gamma frequencies, where creativity, clarity, intuition, and the kind of open receptive awareness that allows divine communication to come through without interference actually live. 7 minutes each day, through the link in the pinned comment below and in the description. $39. A 90-day money-back guarantee that is complete and unconditional. This is the daily returning to frequency that everything in this message has been pointing toward. The practical daily act of alignment that takes the spiritual truth you have received today and gives it a consistent, reproducible, neurologically grounded pathway to express itself in your actual life. And please remember, the only verified source for the authentic program is the link in the pinned comment below. Do not search for it elsewhere. Do not purchase from any other source. The pinned comment is where the genuine access point has been placed for the people this message was built to find, and that includes you. If you are someone who makes decisions in faith, who has learned through hard experience that the moments where God is moving are also the moments where delay has the highest cost, then this is the moment to move. The $39 access point is available for a limited time. When it closes, and the chosen one, who acts today, will look back in 90 days with a clarity about why this moment mattered that they cannot fully access from where they are standing right now. Before you go, I want to ask you for something that costs nothing but means everything for the people who have not found their way to this message. If what you received today was real, if something in you was reached, if the words landed somewhere that the ordinary noise of your life does not often get to touch, then share this. Put it in front of one person who is carrying the kind of weight we have spoken about today. You may not know in this moment how close they are to giving up, how thin the thread has become that they are still holding on to. But God knows, and He knows that you are the person He chose to place this in front of them, the same way He chose someone to place it in front of you. Be that person for someone else. It is one of the most powerful acts of kingdom love available to you right now. Like this video as an act of agreement that this message deserves to continue reaching the people it was sent to find. Subscribe to this channel because what is coming in future messages is carrying the same weight and the same intention as everything you received today. And you were not led here to receive one message and then lose the connection. You were led here because this channel is one of the places God has chosen to speak to His chosen ones, and you belong in this space. This channel is not monetized by YouTube. We want you to know that plainly. We are not here because it is financially comfortable to be here. We are here because the people who need these messages are real and the calling to create them is real. And we have decided that we will not let financial limitations silence what God has asked us to build. If this message has touched you and you want to help us continue, you can support this channel through the donate link in the pinned comment or in the description below. We are grateful for every contribution, every prayer, every share, every act of support, regardless of its size, is what keeps this work alive and keeps these messages reaching the chosen ones who are waiting for them without yet knowing where to look. And if giving is not where you are right now, we understand completely. Your presence here matters. Your comment matters. Your willingness to stay with this message from beginning to end matters more than you know. Leave a comment below telling us what part of today's message reached you most deeply. We read them, we pray over them, and your words become part of the testimony that encourages the next person who arrives at this message in the middle of their own darkest chapter and needs to know that someone else has been exactly where they are and made it through. You are a chosen one. You were chosen before you were formed. You have been carried through every season that tried to convince you otherwise. And the morning that has been coming for your life, the one that has been moving toward you across every chapter of formation and fire and faithful invisible endurance, is closer right now than it has ever been. Do not stop now. Do not settle for the version of your life that exists on this side of the threshold when everything God has prepared for you is waiting on the other side of one faithful step. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to disappear into the noise. You were marked before birth, refined through fire, and you are standing right now at the exact moment your story has been building toward. Step through. The crown is already prepared. The frequency is already yours. And the God who brought you to this message is the same God who will walk with you into every chapter that follows it. Now, before we close, let these final words rest in you like a settling of everything that has been spoken today. You are not who your hardest season said you were. You are not defined by the weight you have been carrying or the length of time you have been carrying it. You are defined by the one who formed you, the one who called you, the one who has been present in every chapter of your story without exception, and the one who is present in this moment right now, closer than the breath in your lungs and more certain than any circumstance that has ever tried to speak louder than his voice over your life. The chosen ones do not arrive at their destiny by accident. They arrive by endurance, by faith that kept its footing when the ground was shaking, by a willingness to keep returning to the truth of who God said they were when every external voice was offering a different and lesser version. That is what you have been doing. And today, something shifted. Something that was spoken over you in this message found the place in you where it needed to land, and it will not leave that place unchanged. Go forward from here, knowing what you came into this message not yet fully knowing, that you were chosen before you were formed, that the weight you carry is not the weight you will carry forever, that the frequency God built into your design is still there, waiting to be restored to its full expression, that the plans He has for you are plans for wholeness and for a future that your most exhausted day has not had the capacity to fully imagine, and that the God who authored every word of your story is not finished writing it. He is not even close to finished. The best chapters are still ahead, and they are written in a hand that has never once made a mistake. You are chosen. You are called. You are covered. And you are closer than you have ever been to the morning that has been coming for your life since before you had a name.